So we have Mr. Mahinder with us. Mahinder ji, over to you.
Now, my name is Mahinder Thakur, and I would be conducting the second session of the day, which will be on COVID-19 challenge and solution for food and beverage industry. So I'll just give you a quick introduction to Mr. Sagar Kurade, then he can start with the session. So Mr. Sagar Kurade would be speaking on COVID-19 crisis, challenges and solutions for food and beverage industry. Mr. Sagar Kurade is an expert on food processing and associated infrastructure and technologies. He is heading India's oldest and the leading consultancy company in food processing sector, namely Suman Projects Consultants Private Limited. Suman Projects Private Limited is a 48-year-old consulting company in India's agri-infrastructure and food processing sector. The company has provided its services to more than 500 plus projects in India and abroad. The clients include Fortune 100 companies, multinational companies, national and state government organizations, as well as small and medium enterprises. Mrs. Kurade is the immediate past president of All India Food Processors Association, as well as executive committee member of some of the leading industry associations in the country, such as CIFTI, FICCI. He has recently been elected as National Vice President of Association of Food Scientists and Technologists. So with this, over to you, sir, for the challenges in food and beverage industry due to COVID-19.
Thank you so much. Quick correction, I am also the immediate past president of the National Vice President of AFSTI, Association of Food Scientists and Technologists, not current. But having said that, friends, a big hello to all of you. We, as you know, are all in this together with regard to the COVID crisis in the food processing industry. It has been challenging last few months, starting from March, when we were expecting this crisis to be a matter of a few weeks, to in April, May, when we realized that this may be on for a few months, to now that we think that this is going to go at least till end of this year, if not the beginning, and hoping for the vaccine to come out sooner than later. Having said that, food processing industry has itself been fortunate as well as going through a challenging time. Fortunate because we are one of the few industries in this COVID crisis that had some functionality happening. Although the production levels were very, very low, and in many MSME cases the production had stopped. But having said that, there was some activity happening in the food sector versus many other industries where there was absolutely no activity happening. So food industry as such is facing challenges. I'm sure over the last 3-4 months you would have heard a lot about this issue. But I'm here to talk from a point of view of more so in terms of solutions than in terms of challenges, but one by one and kind of move forward with this. So one of the biggest challenges the food processing industry currently is facing is with regard to its capital flow disruption. Now, we all know that especially with regard to the MSME sector, the operations has been badly impacted. There were many MSME sector companies that had to actually close their operations down, and that led to serious capital flow issues. Today are looking for capital flow infusion. Banks are very hesitant to give that money out. They are primarily still cherry picking as to whom to give the money and whom not to give the money to. This is in spite of the fact that we have a government of India who announced that up to 3 crore collateral-free loans will be given to MSME sector. If you remember, the definition also got changed on the basis of turnover to up to 250 crores of turnover or below. They will all be considered as MSME sector. Now, how do we know that the money is not coming to the economy? It's because of the fact that all the banks, if you see the RBI treasury, up to 8 lakh crores of all the bank's money has been kept in RBI treasury. Now, this is in spite of the fact that RBI has reduced the reverse repo rate so that banks can be encouraged to give the money out to the customers. But banks are having their issues, and those issues are primarily with regard to the fact that there are already existing NPAs in the economy, and banks are already facing NPA issues. So banks are quite hesitant with regard to giving the loan out. This issue has obviously been brought to the notice of Government of India. If you see, Honorable Prime Minister did bring it to the bank's attention also to enforce the thought of the government that please make sure that the money is getting out and being distributed among those who are in need, not necessarily those who are not in need, and just to kind of show that a paperwork has been done and money has been given. So that is not the need of the art. Art is to take that risk, give the government back collateral loan to the MSME sector. That's something that is required to be done. Also, if you see, there are other issues that economy is facing, the food industry per se, and that is with regard to the labor issues. We had a kind of a weird situation where initially when the shutdown happened, we had a farm level kind of a disruption where we were in the middle of a harvesting season, primarily because we had harvesting of many crops such as mustard, fenugreek, wheat, garlic, etc. And there was a supply chain disruption at a particular point of time. And then on the other side, we had a supply chain disruption from the industry side because not only we were not getting the raw material onto the factories, but also to the fact that whatever the factory was producing was not really getting out. So this supply chain was a serious issue which required to be dealt with. Now, over a time, I think things have kind of eased, but the labor-related situation is still standing and still remains. We do have a situation where many of the workers today are in their native villages and have doubts and aspirations with regard to the fact whether they should come back or not. I tend to feel that probably this situation will persist till end of this year, but hoping that the government also supports the industries in ensuring that they are encouraged to come back to their workplaces and continue with their livelihood the way they were initially doing. So we do encourage the government to come up with some policy-related matters where they can kind of give some incentives to the food processing industry so that those can be put in place. We also have a serious dent to the fact of the ease of doing business in India. Now, if you see the ease of doing business in India, on that matter, the government of India has been always trying to pitch of Make in India initiative, where companies have been encouraged to kind of come to India and try to set up their shop. This has been now escalated to a new logo, which is with regard to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, there were a lot of aspirations.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, please.
Do you want a presentation up?
can put the slide up, it will be great.
Okay. Okay, let us try.
Yeah, friends, I was told that my presentation was not getting up for some technical issues, so I'm glad that this is happening. But in any case, let me continue for those who are listening. And that is with regard to the ease of doing business in India. Now, we know that we initially have a Make in India which is still existent for last 7 years, and this has been now escalated to an Atmanirbhar. Now, many typically try to question of what is the difference in the sense that we had a Make in India versus Atmanirbhar Bharat now. But I think the difference is the new geopolitical scenario we are looking at. 7 years back, 6 years back, 5 years back, the geopolitical scenario was not what it is today. Today we are in a world which is deglobalizing. We are in a world where US is saying make America great, India is wanting investment. Every country is wanting investment and trying to strengthen their base. And what is that leading to is a situation where we are having a deglobalized world where there will be certain barricades that will be put of products coming in and out of that particular country. And therefore, Indian government is also readjusting to that. And hence the change from point in India to Atmanirbhar Bharat. The purpose of Atmanirbhar Bharat is inclusive of Make in India, which means that not only are companies encouraged from anywhere in the world to come and set their shop, especially in the new geopolitical situation where we see that a lot of Japanese investments, a lot of European investments can come in to India as compared to China, but also to encourage local industries to kind of go global. Local industries in the sense that local industries were interdependent on just in inventory coming from different parts of the world. But now geopolitically that is changing, and hence government of India wants to encourage the fact that you should manufacture many of those imported commodities which you were earlier importing, and trying to ensure that an environment whereby there is some kind of an ease of business and some kind of an incentive in place. I will give you an example for that. In food industry, we are having a situation whereby a lot of high capacity plant and machineries are not manufactured in India. So if you're looking at something like manufacturing a potato flake processing plant, or the key machinery is coming from Europe or from China. And even at a smaller scale, we have even Rasgulla and Gulab Jamun making machines that are actually coming from China, so forth. So government of India realizes this fact and wants to therefore position itself in a way where companies in India are encouraged to make those machines, and there is an existing market in India which is an advantage to many of the manufacturers anyway. Plus, they can also look at global competition. Now, here's where the thing comes. When it comes to global competitions, when those companies move into manufacturing and putting alternatives in place by making the same products or machines in India, will they be able to globally compete? And that's where the government of India needs to do, because the cost at which we are able to produce is lower, is higher than that probably China is making, because of several incentives that are in place and subsidies that come into play. Now, that's where the government of India needs to support the industry to ensure that not only are we making in India and our Atmanirbhar, but also to the fact that the Atmanirbhar would be a reality able to globally compete with major competitors like China, and therefore are able to offer products of a good quality at a very, very competitive rate. So this is an important aspect of it. Another typically faced in the industry, even facing at some level now, is with regard to educating our enforcement officials. So what typically we saw during COVID crisis is there were notifications being issued both by central government as well as by the state government, and yet those notifications were not being enforced, in the sense people at the bottom, at the ground level, have no idea what should be stopped and what should not be stopped. In many cases, especially related to the food industry, and many of the entrepreneurs had to, even the production and the sector was declared as an essential item, and the people were declared as frontline people. Yet we had a long time for during which the industry and the companies were closed. So, while it has been left to states by central government in terms of trying to ensure that their enforcement officials, but yet I think there are certain central government agencies that can play a very, very critical role in trying to ensure that these enforcement officials are properly educated and are aware, and therefore are knowing that this can be done, and companies are allowed to open without any hesitation or issues, and no harassment takes place for them. One thing that we have seen during our COVID crisis is a lot of companies in Europe and in many other parts of the world got actually cash incentives for operations, versus India's strategy of avoiding cash incentives. My suggestion is that government of India may not look, probably, if you can get direct cash incentives as an industry, that would be great. But if not, at least there should be indirect cash incentives. And by that I mean that if you see the total income India earns, that is primarily earned by people, by citizens, as well as by companies who are actually paying taxes. So we have a situation where only 3.5 to 4% of the Indian population is paying taxes, and based upon that, the entire economy is running. So there are two things that are typically recommended and suggested. One is trying to see that the tax net is increased, so that the burden on people who are paying taxes does not keep on increasing. Because the strategy is, whoever is paying taxes, let's add more tax on them, and therefore the burden on then increases, and of India to reform and for our country to progress further. And I think government of India is up to it with the fantastic mandate that they have, and they have the political will also, I believe, to do so. Now, idea is to simplify forward. So one is to therefore increase the tax net associated with, and second thing is to also ensure that tax incentives, like those who have paid, all those companies and individuals who have paid supposed taxes, they should at this time be incentivized and encouraged, in the sense that for those who have paid taxes, a suggestion is that you should say, all right, because you have been paying taxes and you are a tax-paying citizen and a tax-paying corporate, a government of India gives you 1 month of your 3-year tax average back into your accounts. Okay, so that in a way would be an indirect, and that would also send a message to all those people who are not paying taxes. So it should typically therefore say, all right, there is an advantage in paying taxes, and government understands and appreciates the fact that the people and corporates who are paying taxes are therefore encouraged, and they should get 1 or 2 months or whatever be the government comfort factor in terms of reimbursing them the average related to that, so that at least they have some cash in hand to ensure that there is no capital flow disruptions associated with that. Another fact is that I also encourage state governments to look into the utility cost, water, electricity, gas bills. That has not eased for many companies and many. So, as you know, there is a thought process whereby some people typically say, "Oh, all right, if the company was shut, then how come electricity rates automatically would be down?" But the fact is that there are actually today companies that are operating with much less workforce, but they are operating. And having said that, they have to pay the rentals, they have to pay the taxes, they have to pay the property taxes, they have to pay the rentals, they have to pay the employee costs. There are costs associated with running the company which are fixed costs. And if a state government at every state level can come forward and try to offer some kind of an incentive whereby again either you reduce it or have a 1 month off or so. Just a moratorium is not going to make an impact with regard to. So those are some of the thought process which are very, very important and critical. A couple of things which we are very happy about as an industry is also with regard to the fact of change in the MSME definition. So that was definitely a very, very good thing Government of India did. And now we have also a situation where the APMC Act, which has been the need of the industry, that has changed. What that will do is allow a farmer to not be in the hands of a few middlemen, and the farmer would therefore have an option to sell his produce out of state also. And that would therefore lead to market linkages. And also the fact that any food processing industry that was sourcing any raw material for their own production had to pay an APMC tax, which was 1% to 2.5%, depending upon which state we are talking about. But then that has now gone, and the industry is very, very happy with regard to that. And lastly, I would like to say that another interesting thing that Government of India put through is with regard to the global tenders. So if you see that up to 200 crores of global tenders that were put out, for that MSME sectors will be encouraged from henceforth. And what was earlier happening is a lot of tendering were going out only on the basis of the turnover criteria, and companies were showing more and more turnover even from non-related businesses to therefore be eligible for those projects and therefore be in line for those bids. Now, what we like to encourage of Government of India is to ensure that a lot of MSME companies, especially homegrown MSME companies, should be limited to that, not just multinationals. So we are having a situation where global tenders are up to 200 crores, and we should therefore try to encourage local homegrown companies and support them. Not just any multinational companies that has come into India and their turnover is up to 200 crores or 100 crores or 150 crores, and therefore they can be part of the global tender. That should not be the case. The case should be that up to 200 crores, at least the homegrown companies should be encouraged, and therefore they should be able to take those projects. Friends, I know we have a time limit. I'm already, I think, 20-25 minutes into my talk. And I have been told, and this is in spite of the fact that I don't have my presentation in place, but I thank the organizers for this opportunity. And as Suman Food Consultants, we are one of the leading consulting companies in India for food processing sector, and we are happy to support both Make in India initiative as well as Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative for any company enterprise who's looking to grow, expand within the food processing sector. With that, I open the stage for any questions that the audience may have. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for such an insightful speech, sir, on the challenges you faced in this COVID-19. There are some questions from the audience. They wanted to know something about cashew nut processing industry. So your thoughts on this?
Sure. So cashew nut industry itself is India is a major player in cashew nut processing as such. But primarily, if you see the coconut and area is coconut belt and the coastal region are there from point of view of cashew nut processing. So if you're looking at cashew nut processing, you should be looking at coastal regions. You have Maharashtra, you have Goa, you have Karnataka, you have Andhra, and even Orissa. Don't forget, even up to Orissa and Assam, you have the entire coastal belt region, which is rich in cashews and can do cashew nut processing with regard to that. Typically, if you are looking at putting a cashew nut processing plant, keep in mind that your project cost at a minimum viable level would be about 6 to 8 odd crores. And this includes the land, building, plant, machinery, working capital margin, pre-operative expenses, as well as miscellaneous fixed assets. And and for those who are not in the coastal region and probably are looking at cashew processing, they can also look at further value addition. So they can look at situation where you can look at offering coated nuts, in different forms, in spice forms or in other forms. Or they can look in offering paste in many forms. So there are multitude of options that can be there for cashew processing.
Okay, great. One more question, sir. You have spoken about Atmanirbhar Bharat. So how do you see Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign possible when there is a lot of Chinese investment in major food delivery companies in India? Like you take Zomato, Swiggy, Panda.
So that's a good question. Let me appreciate the question. So keep in mind, I think the government of India is of a position that if there is an investment, first of all, let me take a step back here and give you a further perspective. Atmanirbhar Bharat is looking for investments which is alternate to China, not as such as companies are smart. Please understand that they are not going to shut their shop in China for any reason and come over here. What companies will try to do is they will try to hedge their risks. They will try to put their eggs in different baskets, and that's where India comes up. Okay, so we had a situation in the world where we saw that we had companies that were sourcing and dependent on China for their requirements, and suddenly when China shut down, the entire supply chain world across the world got disrupted. So companies realized that putting all their eggs in one basket geopolitically may not be the right option. So what they therefore want to do is therefore look at another option in addition to China, where they can put their eggs and therefore geopolitically and supply chain wise be relevant. So you can have all these Southeast Asian countries, you are having all these companies, Japanese companies, European companies, who are now looking at this region as an option, as an additional option to China in terms of investment. Now, let's talk in terms of this particular question that was there, and the strategy therefore is that I think government of India also realizes this, and idea is not to have a controlling stake in the company. Please understand that when a company makes an investment, they make an investment of a certain percentage. As soon as you make an investment of where you have more than 26% in terms of a company stake, you need to be given compulsorily a board seat. And when you get a board seat, you therefore have a say in what the company does. and how the company does and stuff like that. So while investments, if somebody wants to make, can be welcome, but I think government of India may restrict the extent to which the Chinese investments are made in a company, so that there is no controlling state that comes into the company. That's the difference. And that's
Great. So
retain themselves as Indian.
Great, sir. Great reply. We'll take another question. Mr. Ronak Bed is asking, how is dehydration and freeze-dried industry, and how to market these products?
All right. Another good question. So, dehydration industry is in many forms today. All right. If you see, we have many technologies associated with dehydration. We have air-dried, we have infrared, air-dried dehydration, infrared dehydration, microwave dehydration, osmotic dehydration, and even freeze-dried technologies associated. Now, the freeze-dried technology is the most expensive technology among all these technologies that I have mentioned. And but it has one big advantage. The advantage is that you are able to retain the nutritive value of the particular product and also the color aspect of it. Okay, so ideally, freeze-dried technologies are used for those products where a peel factor is very, very important. So, for example, if you have an upma and you have peas in it, okay, and when it is hydrated back again, the peas have to be looking as good as fresh and with the same crunch bite. That's when the freeze-drying technology comes into play. And this is primarily for those kind of technologies. There are cheaper technologies also with regard to that, such as osmotic dehydration and everything, where again you can keep the nutritive value and factor, but then the cost implication is very, very different for that. In my suggestion is, if you are looking at a freeze-dried technology plant, you should look at least 1 metric ton per day capacity in terms of a freeze-dried plant. And the capital cost would be somewhere about 22 to 25 odd crores, including all the factors that I mentioned and building. Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for answering all the questions diligently. I have one gentleman who is raising his hand. Let me see if I can get him live. Mr. Bhaskar and GR.
Most welcome.
Mr. Bhaskaran, let me take one more. Mr. Sangram. No, I think there is some technical issue. So with this, sir, thank you so much for your time and giving the detailed overview of about the challenges faced in this COVID-19. Every industry is facing so many challenges, and so as the food and beverage industry. So thank you so much for your detailed overview on that.
Thank you, Mahendra. My quick thought on that is, for those who have not been able to come or questions.
Yeah. He's live now, sir. Yeah, Mr. Sangram, please ask your question.
Hi, how are you? We can't hear
Sangram, your voice is not audible. Can you hear us?
Sangram, your voice is not audible.
Yeah, his voice is not audible. Sangram, can you hear us?
Very faint voice is coming, Sangram. Can you increase the volume? Probably volume may be an issue. Alright, till Sangram comes, let me share for those people whose questions have not been answered. Feel free to email us at sfc@sumanfoodconsultants.com. that is Singapore, Frankfurt, Canada, SFC, at sumanfoodconsultants.com. We would be happy to answer those questions, or to connect with the organizers and pass us the question through them. We would be happy to answer any doubts or questions they would have for the food processing industries. The strategy forward.
Mr. Sangram, can you ask a question now? So he's asking about herbal extraction.
Yeah. Sangram, can you hear?
His voice is not audible, but he has written his question. He's asking about herbal extraction and health food.
All right. So both are opportunity areas with regard to both herbal extraction. So let's talk first in terms of herbal extraction. There are multitude of extractions that can primarily be taking place. Now you have all these forest crops that are there, or products from which you can extract. For example, from chili you can extract capsaicin, from turmeric you can extract curcumin. From that, capsaicin is used in arthritic medicine by pharma industries. Also, curcumin is used by the anti-cancer drugs. Basically, the fundamental fact is that while all the ailments and the issues, a lot of answer to them are out there in the nature, and all we need to do is we have a tradition historically also and culturally also of looking at nature and seeing how best to incorporate those solutions for ourselves. So herbal extraction is that method by which you are extracting that compound out of the particular food product and using it as your day-to-day need, and that also is therefore then linked with health, because these two answers rightly asked are linked, because at the end of the day the purpose is on the health, and the trend in the industry for food processing is the fact that people are looking for healthier option. Today's generation is much more health conscious than what it was than the previous generation associated with it. And let me tell you, today's generation is much more environmentally also conscious than the previous generation associated with it. So, so in healthier options also, you can look at offering healthier foods. So, if I can take example of, let's say you are frying something, all right? In case of frying, you can, under normal conditions, you can also look at vacuum fry technologies, whereby very less oil gets absorbed and you are able to retain the color and nutritive value of the food product also. So there are multitude of technologies today whereby you are able to offer healthier option. The problem sometimes happens is when an entrepreneur tries to do something really innovative, where the eating habit, where the food product is not part of their dietary habits. Okay, so there comes a challenge. But there are many products, while I encourage those entrepreneurs to go in the direction, but there are many products there you should be typically looking at which are part of dietary habits and can be made in a healthier way, so that you can offer it to your consumers. I hope that answers.
Right, sir. Yes, right, sir. Thank you so much. There are other questions also, but due to time constraint, we won't be able to take that. I would try and get them answered in our next sessions. So with this, Mr. Sagar Kurade, thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to have other sessions in coming future also. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful in some way. Thank you so much.
Yes.